All right, guys. Today is Friday, November 13th. It's Friday the 13th. I kind of just put that together.
Oh, yeah.
What a great day to kick off the fifth day of our movement discussion. Of course, this is, this is our lead health coach, Dan Tribley from Epic Functional Medicine. I'm Dr. Jason Bradley from Epic Functional Medicine. And, you know, we've had a blast this week. I'm going to let Dan kind of do a little recap, so I won't repeat it, but we've had a really good blast diving into movement. And again, just kind of remind everybody, we do these challenges every single month. You know, everything is growth. And those of you that have been with Epic for a while, or in this group for a while, or certainly following me for a while, you know that at Epic, we're always trying to grow and improve and, you know, all of those pieces. So every time we do one of these, what I found is they've gotten a little bit better. They've gotten a little bit more organized, and I think it's great. And I really want to just kind of give kudos while I have it to my team for doing a lot of that hard work on the back end. And I really appreciate that, Dan and Natalie and Steph and Rach and Adeline. And boy, I could go on. I think that's who's been helping this.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's the team.
Almost. No, almost everybody. We have almost everybody helping us with this week, which is why it's gone so smoothly, except for yesterday. And I just quickly want to take 1 minute or less and just tell everybody I'm really sorry about yesterday. Really long story short, I had a consultant that was very hard to book, and we booked this a while ago. Businesses need consultants sometimes. We booked it a while ago, and for whatever reason, it didn't make it onto my calendar. It was in our head calendars. Rachel and I knew we had this meeting, but it never made onto a physical calendar or a digital calendar anywhere. And yesterday morning, we kind of had one of those holy crap moments where Dan and I were double booked. And so here's the worst part of it, and Dan knows this part. Dan and I connected yesterday morning and debriefed, and I was like, Dan, I'm going to be there at 1. I can only commit from 1 to 1:15. I'm really sorry. And then that was my intention. And then what happened was, full disclosure, I didn't set an alarm or anything. I just, again, kind of felt like I would know to do that. And it was a whirlwind. Our consultant got there a little late. It was supposed to be 12, but it was 12:30, 12:45. And it just was a whirlwind when he got there and we were connecting. So I apologize, everybody. It was an unplanned miss, and it was just a scheduling kerfluffle and poor reminder sets. And it's like everything that could have gone wrong yesterday for me to connect with you guys, it just did. And I apologize, and it just wasn't my intention. And I hate that. I hate when I make commitments and I don't keep them. It's not like me, and I just want to apologize for everybody. And I just want to also thank Dan, who was expecting me to show up at 1 and did a great episode anyway. So I just want to say, Dan, thank you. And thank you everybody else for giving me just a couple of minutes there. It doesn't happen very often. I don't remember the last time it happened, but it happens once in a while, right? So I apologize. But that all said, Dan, thank you again. I'm going to turn it right over to you. And I'm going to let you kind of do a recap and then build us into this week.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you guys, maybe, although it's kind of our conclusion of the movement challenge this week in terms of our lives, if you're hopping in for the first time or wherever you're at in the process, where we've started, where we've come through is day 1, we took some time creating first the foundations, talking about the big why, and also a practical foundation through implementation intentions. An implementation intention is where we get very specific as we can be with exactly what days of the week that we're going to implement a routine. In this case, an exercise routine. How much time are we going to spend each session doing that exercise? What's realistic? Where physically do you see doing this? Like, what's the location? And then number 4, the specific time of the day that you do it. So when we get specific on those things, that alone can increase our chances in building consistency there. Then day 2, we got into the next part. We need to create that first foundation, but we still need some practical tools for getting an idea of what kind of movement will we do in the first place? What will be that routine? So we took some time on day 2 to talk about that. And then day 3, as many of us maybe have encountered at one point in our lives, or even this week as we started up trying to do some things for movement, that we need to make sure we listen to our bodies and that we are meeting our body where it's at, to not overtrain or work a certain part of the body too hard, and what some general tips for how to modify and things to think about and how we modify our movements to meet us where we're at and not us trying to match what other people are doing where they are at. And then that led us to yesterday, where we had kind of a lot of different topics, all kind of related together, doing a deeper dive into comparing strength training versus cardio. What are the pros and cons of each one, and what's kind of the general approach we recommend for balance there? And on the topic of balance, we did discuss about balance and also flexibility and just the bigger picture of making sure we're all thinking about, do we have all these different components, do all these different components have a say somewhere in our movement, in our lives, or in our exercise routines? If there aren't, those are good opportunities to refine, improve upon. And because I had the floor yesterday, I also did a deeper dive on foam rolling as well, for that flexibility and recovery aspect we should think about. So that leads us to today, where we're going to talk just about thinking about just long term. It's always with anything, right? We start, a diet, like a new diet, and we do like a detox or a cleanse. Like, I think we all experience when we do some habit changes, there's a natural initial uh, it gosh, I'm trying to use a word I usually don't use often now, I'm getting tongue tied, impetus, but just like something that can kind of drive us forward. And it's hard to avoid when you start something new to have it be the equal level of motivation and drive that subsequent days would. There's usually a little bit higher, right? So that can kind of skew our thoughts on like how sustainable it feels like, because we have that extra energy, a little bit more of that focus, intentionality. But inevitably, for a lot of us, there comes a point, whether that point is the end of, by day 5, or if it's by month 5 or week 5, yeah, that we can start to get some burnout or start to see maybe where long term something's not sustainable, whether physically or psychologically, in our approach. So we just kind of want to dig into that a little bit together today, and also just share some other thoughts too, for things we could be thinking about, of tools such as habit stacking, that can help us to, I know, right? You've been so excited for that. Tools that can help us to continue to re-engage even as life changes on us. And also too, just kind of, Dr. Briley might share with us too, a little about some metrics we can be thinking about. This will be a part of our ebook. You're muted, by the way, just in case.
Great. Thank you.
That can be helpful for us, no problem, to keep in mind for thinking big picture and long term. Like, we can get started with some kinds of movement and that works for us for a while, and maybe we improve in some areas, and then we need some guidance or help on, well, what else could I or should I improve, and how can I change things up to keep it interesting? So kind of thinking back to those biometric pieces for movement health can be a helpful reminder too. So that is where we were and where we're at today. So that's the recap. And I'll just start us off by the first thing I just want to share is novelty, variety. There, as I was even doing this recap, and as we've been doing this challenge today, this week, it's interesting to see how many parallels there are in how we approach habits with movement, let alone anything else such as diet. Like, when we are starting to a new dietary approach or lifestyle, a lot of folks have said they have something that works for them for a time, and then they hit a point in time where it starts to get boring, or they need variety, they need something new to keep things fresh. And I know in my own life, and I think for a lot of people, the same could be said for movement. And so I just want to throw that out there for all of us to keep in mind and pay attention to yourself. If you're starting to encounter resistance, you can't put your finger on why there's that resistance with continuing to that routine for exercise, even after you've been doing it for a while and you think, this should be a habit by now. I've been doing this for weeks or months. Like, what's going on? Think about, hey, are you ready for something new? Could that be helpful? And sometimes just having something fresh, it re-engages our minds it re-engages our desire, and that I think the desire in all of us, that value of learning. And it just keeps things fresh, and you're getting more benefit out of it. There's so much complexity to muscles, and I swear it seems like I do one kind of exercise routine, I'm like, oh, I've really strengthened my chest now, and then I do like push-ups, maybe and then something else is sore, and I'm like, what the heck did that push-up do that the bench press didn't, or whatever, right? So there's value to variety physically, but also psychologically.
And I was going to say, even like just on something like that, we can go down a rabbit hole here, and I know we all know this, but I mean, we can make this as complex as we need to. I mean, I almost went into a little mini lecture about muscle spindles, joint mechanoreceptors, proprioceptive nerve endings, and other efferent input from the nerves to the brain that have to do with balance and whatnot. When I was talking about that, I mean, it could be super, super complicated, but it doesn't really need to be, right?
Right.
And I was going to talk about that variety as well. You're talking about, doing benches and then turn around and doing push-ups. And I mean, I'm sure you've all noticed this, but, sometimes when you're on a machine, it's hard, but, if you have free weights and you can, do the bench here or here or here, right? Or the push-ups, or the push-ups or the push-ups. And I mean, it's the same thing, right? Your hands are just in a slightly different space. Same thing with chin-ups and right? I mean, those slight variations end up working tiny little aspects of maybe even the same muscles, but different parts of them. And so like, I think the cool thing is if we just think variety, I mean, even if you're like, man, I need something new with my push-ups. I mean, go out a little further, and I almost promise you it's going to be a lot harder to do. I mean, if you're nailing these guys, I could do 150 of these. I can't, by the way. I mean, come on, we'll talk about biometrics in a minute. But we're doing these. It is one of those things where I can do these quite a while. But if I go out here, I don't know, like one or two maybe. I mean, my lateral part of my chest is weak. And I wouldn't know that unless I was messing around with that variability a little bit.
Yeah, it's really true. It's really true. And I think when we think about variety, the other challenge is going back to headspace, and like psychology and like our mindset going into our habits and routines and the goals we have is, quite a number of books you read out there about habits, or, coach people through changes and behaviors. I mean, all kinds of things. There's a common thread discussing about getting out of autopilot. And that is, our bodies and our brains wants to automate and make things more efficient. So it frees the brain up, it frees our minds up to have that energy for other decision making that takes extra focus. And so it's a good thing. But what can happen is we can get caught in autopilot. We get into a routine with exercise, you're doing this thing, and we can be blind to when there's some resistance going on at a subconscious level of like, I don't want to do this as much. I'm not as excited to do this today, but I'll still do it. And then eventually we're like, man, what's going on? I just don't have it in me. And so one simple method for all of us to keep in mind to help break that autopilot always has to be with reflection. Reflection or mindfulness is a part of reflection's a part of mindfulness, I should say, is a key tool there, because we're taking a moment in time to break the cycle of autopilot of just doing things because that's just what we do, and think on it and assess. And so when we think about, like at Epic, we love talking about SMART goals in our coaching with our private clients. And that acronym, real quick, is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. When we think about T for time bound, it is important to give yourself a future date, maybe an arbitrary one, where you're like, I'm going to check in with myself and on this goal or this plan I've created and assess, is this still good for me right now? Do I still like this? Do I need to change it? If we even schedule that in, you can give yourself time, you can have a built-in reminder to break the autopilot and go, I've been doing this routine for a month now. How's that going? How do I feel about it? So that's just a simple thing you can schedule in, practically do to help aid in that. Dr. Bradley, look past to you. You look like you've got some thoughts.
I've got
You've got your own
2.5, right?
Two and a half.
Dan and I work together enough, and I think you guys have seen me enough that here's what I do. I have been working my entire life to not cut people off. I am one of those people. I am one of those like, oh, I want to interject right now. And Dan's been with me long enough to hopefully, I think, have seen me grow here, right? And the way that I've grown is I do finger counts, right? And so it's the only way I can remember things, or I write things down just to let you know what I'm doing over here. So you can see it. I'm keeping notes. That's my closest whiteboard that I have. I have pen and paper right here, but I just don't. I want to talk a little bit about getting into that autopilot just a little bit and use something like a bodybuilder, right, as an example, and then talk about a couple of things here that are around it. And I think that variety is really important. And then I want to jump to that monthly reflection point and then interject an idea. I don't want to derail you. I'm going to interject the idea, and then it's either going to be appropriate to talk about it or we'll come back to it because it's going to fit in at some point. First of all, bodybuilders. I mean, we've seen these people, right? I mean, first of all, you can just imagine me with my shirt off. I'm kidding. These guys and gals are really dedicated to having a physique, right? And I mean, there's different levels of this. I mean, there's different levels of this and it's competition. A lot of it's competitive. Some people are competing with themselves. I think ultimately all athletes are competing with themselves when you get down to it. And actually, take the word athlete out of there. We're all competing with ourselves, right? I've solved it for everybody now. And we're our own worst enemies. Okay. These bodybuilders spend so much time like honing and shape and the lines and you know what I mean? And we've seen it, right? And the thing is, and they're obviously strong enough to lift those weights and I mean, all that, but when you put them in real world tests, they're not very strong people. Really, when no pun intended here, but when push comes to shove. And I say that because I had a friend of mine that was a bodybuilder, and he got a job as a bouncer. And he knew flat out that if a real world situation happened, he looks big, but he didn't have a lot of strength to him as far as real world activity goes. Luckily, he didn't end up in any type of altercations. He was big enough to look threatening and menacing, right?
There you go.
In the military, we always say watch out for the little guy or the guy in the middle. Those are the guys that you got to pay attention to. But nonetheless, I want to talk about that real world because with that variety, one of the things that you can do, I mean, we talked a couple times about lifting weights and benches and this and muscles, right? And strength is a really easy thing to talk about because to a certain extent, it's more easily measurable than other things, right? I mean, when we're talking about cardiovascular training, I mean, it's not one of those things that we have an easy way to monitor at home sometimes. I mean, we have devices now that can monitor, I mean, mine does an EKG and oxygen levels and this and that. And they're, when the software firmware FDA update comes through, it's going to do blood sugar and there's tack on for blood pressure. I mean, I'm going to have a whole cardiac unit right on my wrist, for $350. I mean, I'm not poo-pooing that amount, but I mean, for a smart device, it's pretty awesome. But we can start measuring these other things. It's hard to measure flexibility. We can certainly measure balance a little bit, but strength, it's easy to measure. But when we talk about variety, one thing I want to put out there is cross-training. I want to think about real world activities. I love gym activities. We have a home gym. A number of years ago, we said we're not going to invest to have a membership at a gym because we could buy a gym and get, you know what I mean? And over the course of like 23 years, pay it off and have a break even with a gym membership. I'm kidding. But it takes a little bit of time to, there's a little bit of break there, but at some point you're not paying for a gym membership anymore and you've got good equipment if you invest in it, right? So we invested in commercial quality equipment for our house. And so we have that. But what I really like doing is real world activities, right? I like biking. I will sometimes, I was going to say go out and move rocks around. I'm teasing, but you know what I mean? Like being active. One of the things that I think you talk about in the movement is while we want intentional movement, activity is good, right? And we need to practice those same, listening to the body, all of that stuff when we're doing real world activities. And I'm not sure we can do this. I haven't talked to Dan about it, big picture, but I do wonder if I'm outside moving rock. I don't move rock, by the way, but I have before, and it's heavy work. And I'm wondering if in my head, because one of the things that we say at Epic is It doesn't really matter what your job is. If you're moving boxes all day long, unloading and loading trucks and whatever it is, it doesn't count as exercise. We have to have intentional time set aside, right? I do have this idea of what if when I'm shoveling my pea gravel onto whatever I'm doing, and I say, hey, this is my weightlifting for the day. I'm going to intentionally do this, right? I wonder if there's a way to combine some of that. But nonetheless, I think real world activities, cross-training, variety is very important because it ends up working those tiny, like I said, those tiny little muscles that might not be perfectly hit with lifting a weight in a certain way or stretching in a certain way or, or this or that in a certain way. So I really want to emphasize real world stuff and not just gym stuff, although there's utility in both. And I really want to say that, right? Did I say that correctly? Did that make sense? I rambled.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. And it's a good point. I fall into this category a lot where I overemphasize my life, my fitness and strength based on what's happening in the exercise routine itself or
Right.
the numbers or whatever. And then when push comes to shove and I'm helping somebody carry something in, like they're helping somebody move into their house or,
Right.
you know,
You're that friend. That's Dan is the friend that will help you move. I will let you guys know that.
Oh my gosh, quick aside. So my wife's side of the family and then my family 2 years ago, every person, her family, and then for us, we in the 12-month period between 2018 2019, every single one of us moved. It was like four different families moved, and that's not including like other friends I know from like my church, who are like, hey, we need to move. But you get enough people moving. If you get like 10 friends to help, moving becomes like so not stressful. It's great. But anyway,
the other thing too, I mean, I know you have a baby, but when Grayson gets a little older too, if you guys ever move, here's the cool thing. There's a window from about junior high to maybe senior year, freshman year of college, where Grayson and all of his friends will gladly help you guys move if you guys like get them dinner and a movie to watch or something like that. And I'm like, that's the best deal. They're like, deal. Pizza, and I'm like, yep.
You're like, sign me up.
Yeah.
So
$33 later, and all my stuff is moved in the truck and out of the truck. I mean, it's the best deal ever, right?
Yeah.
So
one thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say one thing now that you brought it up, and even tying this back to day 3, we talked about modification, is a mistake I have made is I assume the strength in the controlled environment, i.e. when I'm got my yoga mat out and I'm doing yoga stuff, or I've got my weights and I'm doing weightlifting or whatever, is to assume, oh, I am equally as strong in those real world applications. And instead, I need to be more careful that I don't overdo something. I remember years ago when I first really began doing fitness in my life. I was didn't do sports or anything growing up, marching band, all that other great stuff, but never. Yep, me too. So freshman year of college, a buddy in the dorm was like, kind of took me under his wing and kind of helped me out with that. And I started getting, kind of excited, kind of confident in myself. I'm like, I can be a guy who can be strong too. I don't want to, I don't want to be the first guy who's like, we need to set this table down when we're moving big objects, But then I got cocky, and then I worked a warehouse job summer after freshman year of college. It was a music store warehouse, and I started lifting things aggressively, not as safely. Not taking my time with it, and then I got some temporary and also permanent, like some tendon damage. And it's like, so just as you brought that up, that's a really good point for us just to remember is real world application is very different than the controlled environment.
Because ultimately that's why we're doing the training, right?
Exactly.
Go back to movement. The whole point of anything that we're doing, whether it's hydration, diet, movement, stress management, sleep patterns, getting our chemistry settled, whatever it is, like the big picture. Ultimately, we just want to be our best selves, right? Most people don't want to have symptoms. Most people don't want to be tired. Most people don't want to be weak. Again, I would say all people, but I've been doing this long enough to tell you that there are some psychological connections to illnesses sometimes that people just don't want to give up. I've shared with Dan before that I had a patient, we track symptoms, and those of you guys that are my patients know this, but we track your symptoms, we quantify them every single month so that we can make sure that our clients are getting better and that we're just not telling them that their labs look better and they should feel better, right? So we track that. And I had a patient, Dan, I think you'll appreciate this, that worked through our program, and he ended up, and I'm making up numbers here, but let's just say he was like 97% improved. It was way over 90. It was a win. It was like a win-win-win. And I mean, I'd been seeing him and we met. This was before I had as many coaches and, different setups. So I was kind of doing your job, right? So I'm in there meeting with him and I'm going over and I'm like, man, look, you look so good here. Look at your symptoms. And he's like, you know what? I just don't know that I feel any better. And I'm like, and I laid out all this when we were doing paperwork, right? So I had all of his like symptom scores that he hand wrote like over the 6 months or so. And they went, down, down, down. I'm like, but look, you're telling me, look at these symptoms. And they're very highly specific, as my patients know. And he's like, no, I see that. And I mean, yeah, I can go down one by one. I just don't feel better though. And then I said, and his name was Mark. And I'm like, Mark, I think you may be the first person I've ever met that might have a disconnect from their body, like as how their body's doing, right? So interestingly, there is a piece there. But nonetheless, I think that one of the important things that we need to do, like you said, is listen to our bodies and in that real world, because what we're doing with everything that we're doing is just trying to be our best selves in that real world, and not be limited and not be held back by, and I don't mean to be, I'll bring the car picture back, the vessel and the spirit, yep. Right? I mean, I don't think we want to be held back by, it's so weird, by having a body that's like a Yugo instead of a Cadillac, right? I mean, or how about this? I'll use it because nobody knows what a Yugo is.
I was like, what's a Yugo?
I think they stopped making them. They were such bad cars, right? They were a joke of a car that came out a while ago. I mean, they were just they were just bad. Okay. As far as I remember, I mean, they were made fun of because they were so bad, but I was really young when they came out. But it's like, do you want to be a thoroughbred or do you want to be, an old nag with a saggy back that's not really usable, right? I mean, right? I mean, we want to be I want to be a thoroughbred. I think most people, if they had a magic wand, would say, heck yeah, I'd love to be a thoroughbred. So remember that this is all about real world application, not just how much can I bench? I could bench 90 last week. Can I get up to 100 this week, right? I mean, it's not like that. And I just want to just come back to real world application. And remember, we have to protect our physical bodies, our vessels, our vehicles, whatever you want to call this, because we only get one. We don't get to trade it in like a car. We don't get to, buy a new house and this and that. We have one thing that we're living in, and that's what we get. So Epic has taken the position that since we only get one and one chance, as far as we know, right? In my understanding of the construct of the way things work, we get one chance, one shot at this thing. And I want it to be the best shot for me. And I want it to be the best shot for Dan. And I want it to be the best shot for every single client I'm working with. And actually, even if you're not my client, and you're just randomly seeing this video, I want you to have the best existence on this planet that you can have, because that's all that we have, right? So I think that's important. One thing I wanted to bring up before we jump into habits and listening to the body, and I was going to say I had a place to come in here, and we were talking about that reflection point, and you said monthly, and I just want to say that monthly is when I recommend, although nobody knows what I'm going to talk about or what I'm talking about yet. This is the ebook that you guys will get next week, right? And honestly, I don't remember the logistics of getting that ebook, but we're going to make sure that everybody can get it, okay? But that ebook that we're making, we're actually writing it today, a lot of it. And by we, Natalie, I'm sending Natalie some info between today and Monday, and she's going to crank it out for you guys by the end of next Friday. But we're going to talk about biometrics of health and longevity. And I do that monthly, right? So this is a time where I just kind of measure everything once a month. And it's a good time for reflection, because at that, like Dan was saying, at that point, it might be a chance to say, am I in autopilot, or is this something that I need to really change around? What should I do differently for this month or this week, or, whatever it is. And I just want to say that it's kind of habit stacking there too, right? I mean, we're saying, hey, once a month, maybe do some measurements. And while you're doing those measurements, reflect on that autopilot, yep. And again, that just comes back to remembering that's what habit stacking is, guys. Remembering to do other things when you're doing something else. right? So, and honestly, this is golden, what I'm about to say, and I didn't make this up. This is from James Clear's Atomic Habits, right? It's where we got the idea of habit stacking. It is well known that when you start to connect habits or things that you want to be doing, what you want to develop, when you start connecting them and doing them together, like I said, once a month I'm going to do measurements, and I know that I'm going to do my reflection at that point too. It starts to have its own momentum, right? And like Dan mentioned the other day, and I'm sure there's a law of this, but when we start to do one thing, we tend to do, like as an example, if we start to do one positive constructive thing for our body, drink more water, right? Doesn't matter what it is, go on a 5-minute walk down to the corner and back, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Everything, when we make that choice, it's interesting. It's been studied a lot. It seems like we make lots of good choices all at once. Like we start to do more good for our body and more construction. Here's the thing though. Dan, do you know the opposite?
Well, if you make a decision or go through something and it's not constructive for you, or it's not the kind of thing you're wanting to be doing.
Let's say it's destructive.
It's destructive. Yes, it's destructive. And especially like it's towards the beginning of, the day, that can affect us in here too, to then affect our choices and keep taking destructive.
It's one thing with movement, because I think a lot of time with movement, I think the thing that we do, like the destructive thing, is just not to do it. Right.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone, I don't even know what the opposite of movement would be, but I don't think anyone's like, not only am I not going to exercise, I'm going to lay on the ground and not move for 36 hours. Right. I don't think anybody's doing that. But it's easier to understand like that. I call it throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Right. It's easier to understand. And we've all done this, right? We're doing pretty good with an eating plan. Some people call it a diet. I don't like that word. I don't have a better word, but so we're on some eating plan, and something happens. We go to work and it's somebody's birthday, and 10 a.m. rolls around and it's break time and there's cupcakes. And we eat a cupcake, right? And you're like, oh, it's just a cupcake. But then lunch rolls around and you're like, well, I had a cupcake, I kind of want this other thing, so no big deal. And then by dinner, you're like, and then you forget to drink water, for some reason. And then for dinner, you're like, screw it. I'm going to have pizza and I'm going to go ahead and have like 6 beers tonight. And, and I'll just do it. I'll just pick it up tomorrow. No big deal. Right. And and some people pick it up on the next day. They're like, you know what? That was my day. I got it out of my system. But most people, it's not one day. It's like one little thing happened, that cupcake, and then diet's off days, weeks, months. Water's out the window. All of a sudden we're snacking before bed and we're watching TV while we're snacking. We lose our sleep patterns. When we get, and then all of a sudden we're dehydrated. We don't have good nutrition. We're not sleeping well. So now we're more stressed, and we have stress chemistry, and we're stress eating. And it's one of those weird things where I want us to, because I know we all know that. Dan, have you experienced that?
It's a compound effect is really what's going on there.
It really is. And it's one of the things we try to protect our clients from, where, the best thing that you can do, I think, the best thing any of us can do, right, is get back up as quickly as we can. I was reading, I'm going to really bastardize this quote, but do you guys know who Les Brown is, just by chance?
I do not.
He's great. If I love Les Brown, he's a motivational speaker, and he's got a great backstory, and he's just a cool guy. I've had an opportunity to meet him once, and I was just on Cairo Hustle, and he was interviewed, I don't know, a few weeks ago. I'm just impressed that I am even invited on the stage with him and Bruce Lipton and other awesome famous people. But nonetheless, Les Brown said, if you're gonna fall, fall back, right? And it's interesting because he said, if you fall on your back, you can still look up, and if you can look up, you can get up. And I'm not sure exactly where he was going with that, but I get it. If you fall down, get back up is what he's saying. And of course we've all heard, if you fall down 7, get up 8. And that's the important thing. Failure ultimately is just not getting back up. And I think a lot of us beat ourselves up like, shoot, I had that cupcake and I screwed up my lunch and I'm not drinking water. And now it's been 5 weeks and I'm, and then we start to beat ourselves up and play that. Remember who our own worst enemy is, right? Who are we competing against? It's this guy right here, always. That's it. There's no competition on this entire planet except what's in between my ears here. And I think the best lesson that we can all learn is just, you know what? We're all gonna screw up. I'm editing myself. I'm pretty happy today. I know. Right? So we all mess up. We're all gonna mess up. I'm gonna mess up. Dan's gonna mess up. Our folks, watching, listening. I mean, everybody on this planet is going to mess up. The important thing is just to accept that was just where we were at that moment. It's okay. That part of us that made those destructive decisions just needs nurtured and loved. I mean, and we got to, instead of being angry at that part of ourselves, and depressed and like, I'm a worthless failure because I ate a cupcake at 10 a.m. the other day at work and it threw me off. It's a whole lot better to just say, you know what? I did my best and I screwed up for a half minute or a day or a week or whatever it is. If you're our clients, we want you to reach out to us immediately and we'll help you get right back on track, right? I mean, our coaches are good at that, but otherwise, the best thing is just to love that part of yourself, acknowledge it, and just say, you know what? I love that part of myself, but I love the whole part of myself too. And I'm going to accept that piece because we all have it, but I'm going to move on and just nurture and nourish my vehicle.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. That
Definitely.
was a little heady there, but I think it's really apropos.
It is. And I have a thought to that. And then I'll share the thought and then I'll pass back to you and we can, with the time we have left over to, look at dive into the biometrics a bit. So, Dr. Bradley was just talking to all of us just about that idea of, that compound effect, like we make one decision, but it creates that trickle effect that can either compound to a positive direction, a constructive direction, or a destructive direction. And it can be insidious and sneaky because it takes time. And so the question can be, as we think about what are some things we can do to help us continue on long term instead of just having this good start with this new habit of exercise and then just kind of stopping and then, and then we define ourselves in that, oh yeah, I'm somebody who can't keep on committing. And something that's been helpful for me and something we also share with a lot of clients is leverage that compound effect. So how do I get back up, right? That's the question.
Yeah.
Well, one way to get back up is get back up to doing something that is really, you find is pretty easy for you, even if it's not fully the thing you want to, get back into the game with. So I'll give 2 examples. I'll give an example that's not related to exercise and then tie it into exercise. So a lot of private clients that we coach, and inevitably, just like myself and Dr. Bradley, right? Like human beings, we are, we get off the path and then we need to get back on it. And it's okay. We don't need to have a judgment there, but just a objective recognition of that. And all the time we're like, hey, of the various ways we get off the path here, like diet or whatever, well, let's just get back onto drinking that water again, right? Like kind of that stable datum, like you like to say, Dr. B, and let's just start drinking more water again. And you create that little win. And it's easier than like, I just need to get back into diet, right? Which is more complex. So with exercise, for me, one thing that's really been helpful for me is, in my experience, just with my history, and this is going to be different for everybody here, for whatever reason, yoga is something that my brain recognizes and approaches as exercise, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like hard exercise to me. Now, I do want to put a caveat there. Yoga is not easy. So don't hear me saying that, but my brain just seems to like get that vibe or feeling. And for whatever reason, no matter how I'm feeling, if somebody's like, hey, you want to do 20 minutes of yoga or 20 minutes of like doing, a leg workout, my brain has a lot more resistance to that leg workout than it ever will to yoga or to other things. And so whenever I feel like off track or unmotivated or whatever, the things that to pick back up, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to at least do yoga today. And for whatever reason, I can do that. And then, like you said, Dr. B, that compound effect. All right, I'm still in the game. I'm still showing up at that time and duration. And you know what? Okay, I do feel ready to do maybe like an arm workout tomorrow. Whereas if I didn't do the yoga that 2 or 3 days ago, I probably wouldn't have been in the mood for anything. So just think about what is that easiest thing for you to do in getting back up, and let that compound to down the road doing the things that you really are aiming for. So
I think those are, honestly, and I know that you guys that are working with Dan, that know or know Dan has such a good way of presenting material, and like I said, just making it really doable. And I don't know, I'm just so impressed with the way you coach, and I'm glad that you're a lead health coach. I'd love to take credit for bringing you onto the team, but really someone else found you, or you found us. it's just been such a good match. But yeah, I think I just want to talk about it. I'm going to go to these notes. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen.
Go for it.
I wanted to make sure I don't want to cover anything else. Oh, I did. Gosh, I knew there was something. 2 things. I meant this a long time ago, but Dan said something really important, which was when we were talking about, when, where, what, how we're going to exercise. Some of these are arbitrary, timelines, but at the same time, we should set a timeline, right? And I like this idea, this is me, of a monthly check-in with yourself. I really like it. I mean, we do it with our clients for lots of reasons, right? And we have lots of tools that we track. We track our clients' progress. We track their symptoms, we track their labs, we track their lifestyle measurements, meaning, again, hydration, diet, movement, stress management, sleep. And we have a lot of data on our clients, and we can really have sub pieces of data in there as well. But I want to talk about 2 things that are important to where we are and where we're going to go in this very next share screen. Number 1, Dan's pop quiz. Parkinson's law. Do you have any idea what that is? Yeah, Rachel and I talk about it a lot, and we throw it out there once in a while. And it's one of those things where as soon as you hear the law, you're gonna be like, that makes total sense. I'm gonna read it to you. It is this: work expands to fill the time allotted. That's it. Yep. So if we say something like, hey, here's an idea. Hey, in 1 week, I need to get this done. I promise you, how long is it going to take, Dan?
It's going to take a week.
How long is it going to take for this guy, for real? 8 days, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm joking, right? But I mean, that's Parkinson's law. It's why I like Stephanie, our office manager, executive assistant. I mean, the person that runs the whole show. It's why I like her writing me to make sure that hey, I'll give you till Wednesday to get this done. But on Tuesday, she's like, hey, are you working on this? Because it's due tomorrow. And again, our older daughter is in college. She's writing a paper. She's had a week to do it. She's been working on it. I went in to chat with her this morning. Yeah, I don't know what time it was, 10:30 or so. And she was procrastinating a little bit and not working. She goes, I know she's working on a paper. And I said, that's okay. When's it due it again? She goes, today. I'm like, how much do you have done? It's like a 4-page paper. She goes, doesn't matter how much I have done. It'll be done today. And it's true. The reality is it will be done today, but she's had about 8 days to write it. Right. And again, I think that we all know this, right? I mean, once in a while, Dan on the flip side is Johnny on the spot. We have our weekly goals that we have to get done and our jobs and our duties. And I think by Wednesday, Dan's always on our checklist. He's like, I'm done with everything. What can I help everybody else out with?
Not always. But...
Whereas, and we have a couple people like that. You and Rachel and Steph are like that. And then I know that me and Adeline and Nat and, are kind of on the other end of the spectrum where we're good at what we do, but it takes a while. Maybe a couple extra days sometimes on projects. But Parkinson's law, work will expand the time allotted. So if we give ourselves a month, right, and we start thinking, I would like to accomplish this in a month, whatever that is, it'll take a month. But then I think we can use another law, and it is Drucker's law. And do you know what Drucker's law is?
Nope.
It's a great one. If it can be measured, it can be improved. That's it. Right? So again, if we say those things out loud, it makes sense. We all know that. Right? I mean, if I said something like, I don't know how to say this, but like, Dan, I want you to breathe better. I mean, like, what does that mean? Like,
right.
Come on, Dan, breathe. Breathe better. Like, what is that? But if I said, hey, here's some breath techniques, and we're going to measure your lung volume. And our intention for the breath techniques is to increase your lung volume. I mean, I'm making that up, right? Well, then all of a sudden we can measure, VO2 max and lung volume and, all this stuff that's, oxygen content, of our blood. There's stuff that we can measure all of a sudden so we can know if the breathing that we're using is having an effect. And here's the other thing about Drucker's law. Humans, us, me, you, all of us, I think we're all humans. I don't know. Rachel, I don't know about it. I'm still questioning it. She's superhuman. Stephanie maybe too, but nonetheless, most of us humans, when we know we can measure it, and especially if we know that there's going to be some accountability on the measurement, right? I think that's an important piece of the puzzle. We have, with our clients, main support persons, right? I mean, that's what we have. So we help our clients find someone in their circle so that they can have real-time accountability. We're going to be accountable for their measurements and their SMART goals and all the stuff that we can, but I can't be there with Sally and say, Sally, you said at 4:30 you were going to exercise and it's 4:30 and you're not exercising. What are you doing? I mean, that's a little bit more, close, right? So what I like about Drucker's law, and the point is, we also know that when we measure it, humans want improvement. We have most of us, again, have this natural innate instinct to especially if we know we can improve, right? Not some arbitrary, like if you try hard enough, Dan, I'm sure you can sprout wings and fly. I mean, that's not going to be real. But if we said, hey, I want your lung volume here. I want your oxygen percentage here. I want your heart rate to be here. I want your blood pressure here. I want your vertical leap to be here. I mean, whatever it is we're measuring, you can figure out where you are, and then we can start designing how to get your body where we want it to be. And again, we're talking about movement here. So again, Parkinson's law, I like the month reevaluation. And then in that month, what are we going to do? Is that cool? So what are we going to measure? Is that cool? Yep. Awesome. That's the setup. And here's what I wanted to share. And Dan's seen this, and it's not beautiful, guys. And I actually have not updated this. This is a whiteboard. I have not updated this. I have a bunch of data on my phone that's just not really usable. But this is what we're putting into the ebook, just to kind of let you guys know. So here's what I've been working on. I've been working on specifically, are there measurements that we can do mostly at home, right, with no equipment, no doctor, and measure our physical abilities? And if we, of course we can, and what does that mean for our overall health and longevity, right? So the way that I was first looking this up are, what are the biometrics of longevity, right? That's really what I was studying here. Are there things that we can do that we know if we can improve upon them, Drucker's law, right, over time, that the outcomes clearly say we will live longer and healthier? And that's it. That's the question, right? So you can see me here. Rachel's on the other side, but I'll share this with you guys. So here I am. It's me. I'm a male. I'm 70 inches tall. This was when this started getting put together, guys, when I turned 48 this year. And it hit me that I'm 2 years away from 50, right? And Dan, I know you know the stat, but do you want to say what happens to Americans when they turn 50?
When they turn 50, the odds, once anybody who hits 50 years old, the odds of making it to 70 years old drops by a certain amount and relate to heart disease. That's what I'm
cool. Remembering. Yeah. I'll just say it really clearly too. So this is it. For those of us lucky enough to hit 50, 2/3 of us will be dead before we're 70. Mostly from preventable and reversible conditions, heart disease and cancer.
Okay.
All right. 90% of heart disease and cancer is completely reversible and preventable. So, I had, and I mentioned this to you guys earlier for full transparency, over COVID, my weight went up, and it went up surprisingly a lot. I didn't really change what I was eating. Nothing really changed. And this is another topic for another day. Probably what happened was, over the course of months, I was probably having like a handful of nuts or two a day just for a snack. It's not like I was off plan, but Dan and I talked about this earlier. That's 150, 250 calories a day. Not really a big deal. But when you add it up over an extra 100 calories a day over a month, that's 3,000 calories a month. 3,500 calories is 1 pound, right? And from March, April, May, June, and July, I gained, I probably started before then, but wasn't measuring really well. I got in a little little lax on my measurements just pre-COVID. But I had gone from 175 up to 189. I had started to lose weight here when I started it. And you can see that 182 is there at the top. That was my starting weight when I started the whiteboard. I weighed in today at exactly 170.2. So I'm actually about 4.8 pounds lower than I was at the beginning of the year, which is great. And my goal is to get to 165 by the end of the year. My goal weight there, you can see, is 155. So where did I come up with all that, right? Let's just start with that. The first biometric is BMI. And I know we don't like to talk a lot about BMI because it can be misleading. It can be. But let's talk about what it is. BMI, body mass index, is a measurement of our body mass, right, to our height. So my mass is currently I can do some math here real fast. I don't know what my BMI is right now. I should probably know that. Hold on, let me see if I have a quick BMI calculator. Oh, I do.
Sure.
This is great. How do I do this? Home, it says. What do I do? Is it a new one? Oh, date, wait. Okay, sorry, I don't mean this to be this complicated. So I'm gonna do 170.2 and save. And no, I must have my weight wrong. Hold on. Oh,
Could be Serbo.
It made me a woman. I think Rachel was in my app here. Hold on. Hold on.
Something's not right.
I'm like, hold on. I can't tell you what that number is. Hold on. Let me go back now. Calculated good. And how do I go back here? Let me do that one more time. Okay, so I'm going to do here. Sorry, guys. It didn't like what I did. Weight is 170.2 and save. And yeah, perfect. So you can see when I started here, my BMI was 26.1. Boy, that took me a long time. I'm currently at 24.4. Overweight for my height begins at 25 BMI. So not for everybody's height, BMI 25 and above is considered overweight, 30 and above is considered obese. We know that the number one modifiable risk factor for every known disease on the planet is to lower body weight. Obesity and overweight is related to everything. It's the driving force of everything. And again, being overweight and obese in America means that you're in the majority. Almost 75% of Americans have a BMI over 25. It's why we live less long compared to other countries. We are the heaviest population just about on the planet. And we really need to own that. And we are literally, it's because we have a disease of what's on the end of our fork and that we eat too much of it, guys. But nonetheless, you can see that I started at a BMI of 26.1. I'm down to 24.4. So I'm down in that healthy range. I actually have some other measurements that aren't on here that I'll get to. I'm going to cover these here. I actually found a scale that you can use at home that actually measures visceral adipose tissue as well. So visceral adipose tissue is that fat that's around our organs, right? It's not like it's body fat, but it's on the inside and it's around the organs and it's strangling the organs. And we know that people that have BMIs above 25, certainly above 30, have a lot of visceral adipose tissue and the blood flow just cannot get to the organs. And that's why we end up, the heart can't get blood, the brain can't get blood. Those are called infarcts, right? And that's called a cardiac event or a stroke or something like that, right? So nonetheless, we got to get the BMI down. So weight, I'm measuring weight. And then over on that left side, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but over on this left side, I don't have any measurements built in here. And this is probably not something easily to do at home. But again, if you have a scale that measures lean body fat percentage, fat body mass percentage, that's a great place to start. Again, I have a device, and it's just a scale. And it's the most brilliant scale I've ever seen. I can't remember the name of it. I don't remember what brand it is, but it's so cool. It measures visceral adipose tissue. It does cellular age. And it's all from electric currents, right? And again, you can buy these scales. I think I found mine on Amazon, and I think it was on sale, and it was like, I don't know, $65. It wasn't a lot. Certainly, we have something at our house or at our home office, right? Because we work at home, called a bioelectrical impedance device, a BIA device, and it can measure all of these as well, but I really like my scale for the utility of it. It's one of those things people can do at home. I don't have mine built on this whiteboard, but that's something else that we can measure. We want visceral adipose tissue to be low. We want cellular age to be at least your age or lower. right? And so cellular age is measured with this thing called a phase angle. That's that PA. And we know that as phase angle goes up, the angle refraction goes up, we know that the cellular age is unhealthy. So again, just things you can measure at home. But then other things, blood pressure monitor. I don't know if I can blow this up anymore. Let me see if I can. See how quick, yeah, we can really get in here. This is great.
Oh yeah.
This is cool. All right, so let's just look at this. So here's my blood pressure, 129 over 70. Like these are my measurements on day one. That's all that I have here, guys, are basically my day one measurements. My blood pressure is 129 over 75. So I looked up, and I already knew some of these. What's the best blood pressure for the healthiest people on the planet, right? Turns out it's 100 over 120, 100 to 120 over 60 to 80, right? And I'm right in there. I'm feeling a little good there. My 129 is a little up, so I want to watch that. Heart rate at 77, 60 to 90. Heart rate variability. I couldn't find the data on this, but we know we want a high variability. And again, with smart devices, with smartphones, smart watches, fit devices, a lot of these can measure heart rate variability. We want a high variability. And again, that's just something that your device can measure these days. Oxygen percentage, I was at 98%. I actually measured mine the other day after doing a float tank. I don't know if you've ever done a sensory deprivation tank, but I was in a salt float for like an hour. And I got out and I had 100% oxygen rate. I was like, holy cow, that's awesome, right? Respirations, again, how many breaths per minute am I taking? I didn't find a measurement on so these measurements at the top, they're in blue if you're on if this isn't so blurry, but these measurements are the best health, right? So we want oxygen as an example, greater than 98%. I was at 98%. Respirations, I didn't have I couldn't find the biometric, but I can tell you that there's a number that we expect. Same thing with VO2 max. I really want to, before I commit to this is what we want to measure, I want to come up with a range for that stuff, right? But we can measure our waist, we can measure our hips. I'd like to do mine now because I have a feeling that it's lower. Just to let you guys know, the waist is basically right. Let's see where it's right. It's right below the last rib. And then the hip is at the largest protuberance of the hips and the buttocks, right? And we want to have this WHR is a waist to hip ratio. And we can actually divide our waist by our hips. And we want to have that number for men less than 0.9. I was 0.98. I've lost the weight since then, right? Obviously it is. Again, chest measurements, bicep measurements, neck measurements, not really a normal on that, but this is where it gets interesting. Push-ups. Turns out that the healthiest men on the planet should be able to do more than 56 push-ups. And just, these are like plank push-ups. You're not on your knees, right? These are full push-ups, right? I could do 12 the other day, 12 when I did my measurement the first time.
In a single session?
In a single session, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and it was hard 12. I was surprised. Pull-ups, I didn't have my pull-up bar, but again, sometimes when so when you guys get your book, you'll have this is the data we're going to send you guys, right? You guys can track yourself. Cool thing. Pull-ups, men should be able to do 8, but men that do greater than 15 live the longest and the healthiest. Okay. Sit-ups, men should be able to do over 49. I could do 15. This is called, I don't remember what SRT stands for. Sit-rise test. Sit-rise test, right? I don't know if we can do this. Let me see if I can do this. Hold on. Okay, I don't know if you can see me, not really well, but the sit-rise test is basically, I'm not going to use my hands, I'm not going to use my legs, right? So I'm going to sit down on the floor, here's my hands, now I'm going to stand up back, right? So that's called a sit-rise test. You should be able to sit and stand without grabbing a hold of my knees or pushing myself up or pushing myself down or pushing on the ground. 10 is the goal there. Every time you touch anything, so if you touch here, you lose a point. You can lose 5 points going down and 5 points going up. But and actually that sitting rising test, and star next to it, may be the #1 predictor of imminent mortality. Out of everything we know, that one test that you can do at home. Toe touching. You should be able to touch your toes, right? And actually get, here it says men should at least be at 0, right? Greater than 0, so at least touching the toes. But then it says I should be able to go 6.5 inches past my toes for the healthiest, most flexible men, right? That live the longest. Dan, I was at -8 inches. Here's that balance we were talking about, right? Balance on the right leg and left leg, greater than a minute each. And that was with, Greater than 1 minute. That's with the eyes open. These are my scores with the eyes
Right.
closed, by the way. I could do it with the eyes open. So
It's tricky to do with your eyes closed. Yeah.
tricky. And I don't know what the measurement there is, but I think it's 20 seconds. I'm pretty sure. I was at 9.7 on the right and 16.6 on the left. Squats again. Can you just, squats, not with weights. You're just, doing these guys, right? But you should be able to do it 34 times. And then vertical jump, right? I didn't measure this, but I thought this was a weird measurement. Who would think to measure your vertical jump, right? Where you're just standing against the wall and just jumping up. How high can you go? Straight up. Men should be able to jump 20 inches, but the healthiest men, 28 inches. That's a massive vertical leap, I
Over 2 feet.
I was going to make a joke. There was a movie a number of years ago that was something like White Men Can't Jump or something like that. I can't remember it. And I remember when that came out, I was like, yep, that's totally me, man. I don't have a vertical leap. It's very, very, very true.
And that's without swinging your arms up, right? Just
right.
Literally
yep.
Your legs bend,
Yep.
you jump up,
Yep.
and you don't tuck your knees back in. It's just
Right. So then hits, hits are kind of measured, right? They're 4 minutes, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 8 reps. So what I do, and I don't have my baselines in here, but I can just about tell you what they are. I do, burpees, mountain climb. These are the things that I do for my 20-second hits or 20-second intervals. And I know I want to, it's a competition with yourself, right? But I know I want to do X number of burpees and X number of mountain climbers. I want to beat myself every time. So I'm always pushing myself forward. I'm making this up. So let's just say for jumping jacks, I know my number pretty well. I can do 35 jumping jacks in 20 seconds, right? So my goal is to do 35 jumping jacks at least, if not 36. And when I hit 36, I want to hit 36 every time. And then I want to go for 37, right? Obviously, there's a limiting factor there. I don't know how fast somebody can move. I feel like my jumping jacks are really fast.
Right.
No, I think that you get the idea. We can push that up. I'm going to come back to that here in a minute. And then last but not least, I did, what can we do to work on, the chest and triceps, the back and the biceps, and the back and the bench, and kind of have my weights here so that we're hitting all of those areas. And then that's it. Oh, this is my favorite part. Look, you have a cute butt. I don't know who wrote that. I didn't write it to myself. But I'll take the compliment. I think I know who wrote it. So we'll look over here at Rachel's really fast. Same idea, right? So she weighed in at 135, but wants to gain weight. So she's been actually working on gaining weight. Her BMI at the time was 19.4. She wants to be around 20. You'll notice that I set my goal BMI at 22.2, which factors out to 155 pounds. Rachel wants hers to be at least 20. 20 to 22 is the optimum. I should have said that. 20 to 22 is the optimum BMI for most people. Bodybuilders have higher BMIs. It's not a useful tool for them. Right. But for us, Rachel's on the lower end of normal here, but this is much more in the optimum end of normal. Same thing here. I won't go through the same thing, but there's some measurements there. But again, blood pressure, heart rate, all this stuff, it's all going to stay the same. But then we get into, I don't know if we can see this. Yeah. Push-ups, greater than 37, but remember mine was greater than 56, right? So these are the females. And again, they're just saying that the healthiest females on the planet can do 37 push-ups. An average health female, 3 pull-ups, but a really healthy female, 7. And again, men were, what was our number? 8 and 15, right? So again, they're just lower. Sit-ups, 43. That SRT is still 10 points. Toe touching is interesting. Women have to be a little bit more flexible. Remember, we were 0. Anything above 0, they're anything above a half an inch, right? We were 6.5 inches. They're 8 inches for optimum health, right? So women are just naturally more flexible according to what we're looking at in the literature. There's that balance again. The squats were a little bit lower. I think mine were like 54 squats. 34. And her, I thought mine was 54. Hers were 29. So not that big. Vertical leaps again, 16, 24, 20, 28. So again, really similar here. But again, a variance for men and women. Here's Rachel. Rachel really, for hits, pretty much just does jump roping. Once in a while will run in place with me, but she really likes her jump rope. And she has one of those ones that counts. I don't know how many jumps she gets in a 20-second interval, but she has one of those that count, and she always tries to beat herself. And then again, she's doing her arms, legs, abs, back, a little bit different than me, and we don't have any observations on her. But I wanted to just kind of point out that, again, these are biometrics that we can do at home. They don't really cost us anything but the time. It's a great chance for us to step back and do that reflection that we talked about. And really, we can look at measure. We set Parkinson's law. I'm going to measure these things every month, right? Drucker's law. I have a month to improve. Drucker's law, I'm going to measure it. And then, so over the course of the month, how are we going to improve? Because at the end of the month, we want improvement, right? Even a little, any improvement is good improvement. And that's another big take home. Honestly, even if your stats aren't improving, but you're doing it every day, it's still better than nothing, because I can almost promise you, if you do nothing, it's going to go in the other direction, right? So I would say at least maintain where you are and try to move forward, right? So what I like about this is, again, we have a lot built in here. We've taken Parkinson's law for we have a time. We have Drucker's law. We're going to measure it so we can improve on it. We've defined the measurements. We'll send that ebook out for everybody. And of course, there's so much more to movement than what's on that page, right? But again, we are hitting, if you look at it, strength, cardiovascular, flexibility measurements, and even balance. We're hitting all 4 movement areas, which is awesome, right? And then we're able to set, I don't know if goals are the right word, but we're able to say, okay, this is where I was, this is where I am. And if we're not making progress, maybe that's a good time again for reflection, to step back and say, hey, I wonder why I didn't make progress. Was I consistent? That's always the first place to go, is did I do what I said I needed to do, right? Usually the answer is probably not, right? So that might just be a time for recommitment, and that's always a good space to go. Recommitment. Figure out what was working and what wasn't working. Like Dan was talking about, I hate, or I don't like this type of exercise, but I like this other type of exercise, right? Well, don't put yourself through another month of something that you don't like, right? If you thought you liked something and you don't like it, switch it out,
Yep.
On the flip side, it might be interesting if you did it for like 21 days to go and finish out the month and see where the measurement was. Because what if it was like the coolest thing that really like blew your measurements away? Like they're just off the charts. I don't know, that might be motivating. But nonetheless, find something that you like, for sure. And then of course, do it. And we're going to help you guys organize this in that ebook. And again, I don't know what it's going to look like, because we're writing it now. Our ebooks get longer and longer and longer because we keep adding more and more stuff to it. But, we'll make sure that you guys get a hold of that, and then you can start tracking it, and then you can start, measuring it and improving on it. And I think it's a really good tool. And again, it kind of comes back to that monthly, self-reflection. The one thing I wanted to just throw out though is something that I wanted to a few days ago, and it just didn't come up, but this is I knew if we didn't do it, it would come up today. And I'm going to invoke the name of someone that nobody talks about anymore, but in the 80s and early 90s, this was the guy. And his name was Bill Phillips. And Bill Phillips was a trainer for Hollywood stars, right? Like anybody that had that Hollywood body, whatever it was, Bill Phillips was their personal trainer. And he wrote a book called Body for Life. And I'm not going to recommend the book, because I think that as an example, his diet is way wrong. It's just way outdated. It's just way wrong. So please don't follow it. But he had a really cool concept. And I think it pulls a lot together with what we're talking about, where instead of getting really hung up on how much weight should I lift, right? I'm going to bench 130 pounds, he'd say it doesn't matter. Here's how he would say to have constant forward momentum. And I think it's brilliant. Remember when we talked about going low and starting low and going slow? So he would say, start ridiculously low with weightlifting as an example. Again, we can apply this anywhere, but it's easy with weights because it's measurable, quickly measurable. Start with a weight that you think is ridiculously lower than you can bench press, bicep curl, whatever, it doesn't matter what you're doing, right? And do 20 of them. And if you can do 20, awesome, you're done. Next time that you do it, next day or a couple days later, go up by 5 pounds, 10 pounds, wherever you felt, right? So I'm totally making this up, but let's just say I decided, I think I can do 100 pounds with my bench, right? But I'm going to cut it back to 50 pounds, right? We talked about cutting it in half, right? And let's say that I decide I'm trying to lift that 20 times, right? And I get to like 19, and then I just can't quite make that 20. Phillips would say, that's your weight. That's it. You choose a weight that you can not lift 20 times. You should be able to get almost all the way there, but not quite, right? And he would say that you lift a total of 20 times, and that's it. 20 presses, 20 curls, whatever you're doing, right? And that's it. If you can't get to 20, you're done for the day. Next time you come back, same weights. Come back, same weights. As soon as you hit 20, he says, go up by 5 pounds, right? So he's always progressively pushing people to go forward. It works really well when we start again, with the schematic that I shared with, chest and arms and back and legs and this, I mean, we can really break that down and push our physical capacity in a very safe and responsible way without overtraining. And I really like Phillips. And the other thing that he brings in is the intention and technique, right? And I'm sharing the book, and this is the take home. So the first part's the big one. The second part, intention and technique. So he says when we're doing these weights, we should have the intention that we're doing this for life, for healthy life, right? So his book is called Body for Life, right? So you're supposed to lift it and say in your head, body for life, or body for life, body for life. How are you going to say it? But in your head, it's kind of a control mechanism too, because it keeps you fluid. And, he would say same thing, like whatever technique you're using, use it really purely. Like, don't get into the swinging where you're like, I'm sure some of us done these with the biceps where I got the pump going on, right?
Cheating and
we're cheating and it's not really doing anything, and you could get injured. He would say use lighter weights, go slower, go lower, and work your way to 20 with good technique. Body for life, like really slow and get to 20. And if you can't get there, great. If you could only do 8, fine, that's great. You can do hopefully 9 next time. Work your way up to 20. And then add 5 pounds, and then work your way up 20, and then add 5 pounds. And I really like the technique. Again, I don't know about I'm sure if you got that book, there's probably pictures of how to lift weights and all. I mean, that's the type of book it is, but really that's the take home. Go low, start low, go slow, listen to your body, have intention, use good technique, go lower and build slowly is much better than, some of these bodybuilders coming back to them like, okay, because we're building a body for life, you and I. Bodybuilders on the flip side will say, what's the maximum that I can lift? Whatever, 542 pounds or what, I'm making it up, right? And they'll try to go like right there, like 1 or 2 lifts, and then they're done. Because what happens is their muscles rip a little bit, they get engorged with blood, and their muscles grow. But again, coming back to strength and endurance and real world technique, right? That's not really the way things work. Most of the time are not lifting something really specifically one time and then we're done, right? Most of us that have to do things are like, it's kind of heavy and we kind of got to deal with it. And we got to do it about 504 times. And if you're moving, 18 family members, in one summer, it's a big deal, right? So again, I wanted to bring up, Body for Life and Bill Phillips, and just the intention, the technique, low and slow, grow into it. But I think that that's a good place to even say, hey, here was a month, here's what I did, here's what I need to do, and then here's technique I'm going to use. And then coming back to everything that we learned, the why, the implementation, when, what, where, how, best self-schedule, listen to your body, low and slow, get all your movements in, stack the habits, long-term planning, Body for Life, right? So we've covered so much this week. When I look at it, I'm blown away. I'm absolutely blown away.
Yeah. It's been a lot. It's been good. So thanks for sharing. Those are I was very interested seeing some of those biometrics, just because I started thinking about like, what have I been doing? I'm like, okay. That's
because we get really
a lot more interesting
into that, like you said, that, what'd you call it? Autopilot,
yeah.
Of, can I bitch 130 pounds, right? Does it matter? Let's go to real world stats. What's your vertical leap? What's your balance? What's your flexibility? What's your, like, honestly, like there is no article written that's like, people that can bench 130 pounds live 10 years longer than people that can't. Maybe it's real, but there's nothing that I can find out there. It's all about real world active measurements. And I think that's pretty cool. So I think we covered a lot today. We even did the SRT test with movement, right? There's so much going on there, but we'll share all of that in that book. You guys if you want to freeze the screens and copy it down, you can, but we're going to organize a little bit better. I have more data to share with you guys, but that's how it all started, that whiteboard. That board's not even on my wall anymore. Last time I think I took a picture of that for Dan that was sitting on a wall, but it's not. I just have a couple of parting thoughts, Dan, but how about you? Do you have anything?
No other parting thoughts other than for a wrap up of kind of, hey, as you guys are watching this or been following along, what's your next step? Yeah. So go ahead, Dr. B.
Sure, and that's what I was going to talk about. So yeah, what's the next step? Do you want to?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of give the summary here, and if there's anything you want to fill in on that, go for it. So yeah, we just invite each and every one of you who have, been following along with us this whole week, or you've just been popping in and out, wherever you're at. We'd love to, for all of us, it's a journey. And so what's next, right? So for those of you who are, if you would generally say, hey, I'm just popping in, I'm just listening, I'm not really even really worried or committed about like doing actionable next steps here, I'm new to the group, if you kind of identify yourself sort of in that place, then we just love for you to just introduce yourself, say hi. What are you hoping to get out of this group, and what support do you need? So just say hi, and we'd love to get to meet you.
Can I add one thing there too?
Yeah.
Were you going on to is there anything else you want to tell that group?
For that specific group? No.
I would add, Rachel reminded me of this, Dan, and we did a bad job all week reminding. I didn't really think about it. Rachel said we should tell them to go to the YouTube channel too. We have a ton of videos on there,
Oh, yeah.
And Natalie is organizing them into series. So we have like a detox series. She's putting together a thyroid series. She's putting together some cool stuff. I think that our last super detox, I think she organized that into a series. I mean, this is going to be a series. I don't know what she's been doing on that channel, but I mean, it's pretty cool. So, I mean, check out our YouTube channel. And I think it's just YouTube/Epic Functional Medicine. I think that's it. But it might have
Epic Functional Medicine. Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if there was a center on the back or not.
There shouldn't be for the YouTube.
Yeah, we lost our center, at the end of the year, and so we dropped the name because we thought it was misleading. So it's because we're everywhere. We're all over the U.S. and we're virtual now, right? So, nonetheless, I think that is a good next step for those people too. So yeah, participate in our group, ask questions. I will tell you that in this group, but then also we have a private client group. The folks that participate and ask questions and kind of glean from your peers and then from the professionals that are in the group, and we can weigh in and have a really good conversation. By all means, please utilize that group. There is a gold mine in the Epic 5 Plan community. I mean, and it's not just one person. We have some amazing people in that group.
Excellent. Thanks for mentioning that. It's a good point. And then next, if you guys have been following along, you've been taking some steps, and you're like, "Hey, what's next?" Right? I just want to keep going, keep digging in further. As Dr. Bradley, has been reminding for all of us throughout this week, our intention is that we're doing these challenges each month on that second week of the month, and so we'll have something for you in December. And so stay tuned. We announce for that and give some details there. And we'd love to see you come around again and join that next challenge. And then lastly,
wait, I just want to quickly comment. Yeah, and Rachel's working on a project on the, way farther side of the office. I'm just kidding. She's like right there. I said, hey, do you want to come over and talk about the December challenge? And she said she's just tied up right now. But as far as that goes, Rachel right there is going to be hosting our December challenge. And I'll be there with her, of course, and anybody else wants to join us from the team can. She's going to talk about stress management through the holidays. And I think it's a really important time. It'll be the second week of December, kind of the same setup, where we will be here at 1 p.m. Central for, 1 to 6 hours. I guess, we're going really late today, but I'm kidding. But, we'll be here for at least an hour a day. And probably, some days go a little bit longer, some days a little bit shorter, I suppose. But Rachel's going to be handling that. I'm excited because she's been working on not the challenge, but really honing in on what can be done for stress management for quite some time. So I'm excited to see that class. And like Dan said, register for that. People that register for our classes, by the way, we create those events, or Natalie creates those events on Facebook. It helps us get you whatever free material we're going to send you very quickly. We're going to make sure the material is available to everybody in the group, and we'll probably put it as a download. And we'll probably say, hey, we have a new download if you want it. But if you register, as an example with the ebooks, we'll just send it to you. We can just message it or email it or whatever. You don't have to wait for us to post it and find it and remember to do it and all that, right? So register for those events. And then I think that the people that register for the events also get entered in for a drawing every month, which is kind of fun too. So make sure to do that. And again, that certainly if you just joined the group, I don't think that we meant that you can't join our December challenge. By all means, anybody who wants to join that can join it. And we'll have those every month. January, I'll hit detox again. So that's kind of the next couple months coming up.
Yep, perfect. And then lastly, if you've been following along with us and you're like, you know what, I really want to go deeper, deeper on this and really figure out what's going on with my body and my health and to really heal and get better. And I need more help and direction. I need labs. I mean, there's just a deeper level there that you're seeking. Then we would love to hear from you. And in fact, in the comments here, we've got a link ready for you that you can just click on, where we invite you to a free initial consult with Dr. Bradley or Epic Providers, just to see if the help and the care that you're looking for is a good fit for what we do and how we can help you. So if that's where you're at, click on that link, and we'd love to hear from you. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, and I was just going to say too, we have there's a number of people that fit into that category too, right?
Yeah.
So we have people that were referred to us or found us, and you guys just joined the group. I don't want you to feel like, oh, you got to hang out here for a while and, do some challenges and be here for a few months and then book a call. If you're in this group, if you have access to this video, you have access to a free consultation. And I want to be clear why we do that. And it's interesting. I just had a conversation about this morning in a Facebook group with some other doctors, and they were all talking about, how much is their first visit. And it was funny. It started at $800 for the first, somebody came out swinging. And then it was like $450, $400. It was like who can go the lowest, right? And pretty soon someone was like, I do $97 for the first visit. And I felt like a real jerk. I'm like, I don't charge anything. And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, I figure if we can help them, we're going to be working together for a while, right? And I want to make sure that it's a really good fit for them, for us. I don't want to waste their time, resources, et cetera. Same thing with us. And here's the cool thing about that call. Typically what happens, overwhelmingly, the folks that we connect with, we can help. I just want to put that out there. We do specialize in, autoimmunity, Hashis, thyroid, and then all the stuff that comes with that, adrenal, hormonal imbalance, nutritional issues, digestive issues, brain issues. I mean, all of that stuff that goes with that, weight loss resistance, fatigue, hair falling out, dry skin, constipations. Honestly, if you can think of a symptom, we've seen it and probably know how to manage it. But once in a while, a case will come our way. And let me just say, if that's the case, we're gonna chat with you and say, hey, we think we can help. Here's how we can help. And if it seems like a good fit, we'll move forward. But here's what's cool. If it's just not a good fit, right? If, as an example, I'm a thyroid guy, but I'm not really, it's not true. I'll be careful about my language. I feel more comfortable with hypothyroidism and Hashis than hyperthyroidism. Not because I don't know what to do. It's because my route to address hyperthyroidism, I'm going to be really clear here. And there's not many cases of that. That's the overwhelmingly low percentage of thyroid cases. My approach is really still clunky and in its early development. It works. We can get the TSI antibodies coming down. We can stabilize that, but the medicines that we use and the botanical medicines that we use are a little heavy on the load. So what I typically do with hyperthyroidism is refer I'll say, hey, you know what, I can do it, but here's my friend over here that does that, and that person might be able to do that better. There's entire clinics dedicated to just hyperthyroidism, right? So again, not often does that come in. Another case, we have a lot of unfortunately, cancer cases coming to us lately. Sad. It's a state of where we are in America. And I almost said I love working with cancer clients. That's not what I mean. I do. I wish nobody had cancer, but I love working with them because there's a lot that we can do and we have a pretty good track record with it. But I always want to co-manage that with a good GP and a good oncologist usually, right? So again, sometimes my job is, hey, we can help you and here's how we can help. But I want to put together this other team and make sure that we have the very best doctors on your case, that we're hitting all those angles, right? So it's a valuable discussion no matter what, whether it's a absolutely slam dunk victory, Epic, Bradley, and Dan and the team can knock it out of the park, and that's hopefully what we're going for. Or, hey, here's another clinic to go to, or hey, here's a team that we got to put together. It's a super valuable. I always tell people by the end of that meeting, they will know more about what they need to do to be healthy than they even realized that there was to do. And I mean, we literally try to give so much value away that I just really want to emphasize that, because when some people are like, oh, free consultation, what does that mean? It's a full on doctor consult. you know, and again, it's to make sure that we're all a good match. We're all a good fit. We don't take every case that comes our way, but we take the ones where it's a good fit and we know that we can help. It's probably why our outcomes are so good. I mean, it's probably why, you know, we help people that have been struggling for years, decades, reduce their symptoms by, you know, we had one this morning. How long has he been working with us?
Less than 6 months.
And what did he hit?
91% improved.
91% improved. It's like, and the guy that referred him in was also struggling for months and years. And what did he hit? Like 80-some% in like 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I'm laughing because it brings me joy. I get so much joy seeing our clients succeed. And of course, there's a little bit of this going on too, when people have been struggling for years and decades, and you know, here we are months later, and they're like, "Oh my God, I have my life back. I got to send all my friends in." And you know, it's an awesome feeling to be. I mean, Dan and I feel that every day. You know, it's a cool. We have a cool. I don't even like to call it a job. We have a cool thing that we're doing with our life. You know?
Yep.
Right. Because the word job is like exercise, right? You know, so
it's true.
Right. So who wants a job, right? We have careers and we like helping. But guys, I loved it. And listen, I want everybody, if you have questions, this doesn't have to end now, right? The cool thing about this group, and just a quick side comment. I know we went an hour and a half today, and I'm really sorry. We were really wordy. We had a lot to cover, and I'm glad that we covered it. But the thing that I want you guys, again, to take home from our group is that that Epic 5-Plan community, this Epic 5-Plan community is very safe. This is a safe, closed community. I get to make the rules, and my rules are you can ask any question that you want. In some of those groups that I'm in, I'm not even allowed to comment because I'm a doctor. And I think, how weird is that I have 21 years of experience and an incredible track record with thyroid and hashies. And just because I'm a doctor, I'm not allowed to comment in a Facebook, you know, citizen community. And it's frustrating. And, you know, I've talked to some of the admins, and really long story short, there's some weird Facebook rules. But because my group is my group, I give you guys permission to ask anything that you want. And if for some reason, I mean, you guys see this once in a while, if somebody asks a question, I'm like, hey, you know what? I can't answer direct medical questions, but here's what kind of this feels like, and here's how I would explore it. And I'm happy to share that stuff all day long, every day. So is Dan and our whole team. And we have other doctors and scientists in there as well. So, I mean, you know, use the group. Like I said, I come back to use that group, participate, do our challenges, feel safe in there. And here's the big thing, guys. If you got any value out of this, the only thing that I would ask in exchange is just to invite your friends, your family, your colleagues, your coworkers, your church mates, you know, the guy that delivers your mail. I mean, whatever it is, right? Have them join the group. And I'm just going to thank you for that. My goal is to grow this group into the most robust, fact-based, evidence-based medicine group that's on Facebook. You know, and I'm excited. We're doing it, and it's happening. So thank you guys for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us all week. Dan, thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for your time. This is fun.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. And guys, we'll be back. I'll be back next Thursday in this group. I had to think about it. Back at 1 p.m. Thursday Central. I am here every week doing an hour of live coaching, Q&A, whatever you guys need. Sometimes I have monologues and soliloquies and whatever else we're going to do, right? But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys all next week. And I'll wish everybody an early happy holiday. I guess it's only in a couple of weeks, and, you know, make good choices and all that. And I'm sure that leading up to the holidays, and by the first holiday here, Thanksgiving, I'm sure we will have some super practical tips that we will be sharing. And in fact, I believe on the YouTube channel or somewhere in our resources, and I'll make sure you guys have access to it, we have healthy planning through the holidays. I know we have a video on that. I'm positive that we do. So I'll make sure that we get that to this group as well. So awesome. Thanks, guys. Dan, I had a great time. Thank you.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
You bet. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.